Have you ever had a moment so unexpected that it left you completely speechless? For Hanul, working at a small coffee shop in the heart of Seoul was nothing special. She had been a waitress there for over a year, serving customers their morning coffee, wiping down tables, and making sure the cafe ran smoothly. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid the bills. The morning rush had passed, and the cafe was unusually quiet. Hanul was behind the counter, absent-mindedly wiping a cup when the bell above the door chimed. She glanced up to greet the customer, her usual polite smile in place. But the moment she saw who had just walked in, her heart stopped. A tall man in a hoodie and baseball cap stepped inside, moving with a casual yet undeniable presence. Hanul's breath hitched. No way. Is that? The man pulled his cap down slightly as he approached the counter, but there was no mistaking that face. It was Kim Soo-hyun. Hanul's hands gripped the counter tightly. Stay calm. Act normal. She had served plenty of customers before, some rude, some kind, some who barely even acknowledged her. But she had never served a celebrity, let alone one of the biggest actors in Korea. She took a deep breath and smiled. Good morning. What can I get for you? Kim Soo-hyun glanced at the menu. Just an Americano, please. His voice was calm, polite, familiar, exactly how it sounded in his interviews and dramas. Hanul nodded quickly. Of course. Would you like it hot or iced? Iced, he said simply. She quickly rang up the order. That'll be 5,000 won. He pulled out his wallet and handed her a bill. As she took it, her hands brushed against his for the briefest moment, and she felt her face warm. Get it together, Hanul. Trying to focus, she moved to the espresso machine and began preparing his drink. Her hands worked automatically, but her mind was spinning. Kim Soo-hyun is standing in my cafe. Right now. This is actually happening. Once the drink was ready, she placed it on the counter. Here's your iced Americano. Enjoy. Kim Soo-hyun took the cup, offering her a small smile. Thank you. And just like that, he turned and walked toward a quiet corner of the cafe. Hanul let out a deep breath. Her co-worker, Ji-yeon, rushed over the moment he sat down. Hanul, she whispered excitedly. That's Kim Soo-hyun. Hanul shot her a look. I know. Keep your voice down. Ji-yeon clutched her arm. This is crazy. Why is he here? Hanul shook her head. I have no idea, but we need to act normal. Easier said than done. As the minutes passed, Hanul tried to go about her usual tasks, but she kept glancing in his direction. Unlike most customers, he wasn't scrolling through his phone or rushing his drink. He just sat there, sipping his coffee, staring out the window, completely lost in thought. Something about the sight made Hanul pause. He looks tired. Not in an exhausted way, but in the way someone does when they've been carrying too much weight for too long. For a moment, she forgot that he was a celebrity. He just looked like a person who needed a moment of peace. And for some reason, that made her feel protective. She didn't know why, but she wanted him to enjoy this quiet moment. Little did she know, before he left, he would do something that would make her eyes fill with tears. Hanul stole glances at Kim Soo-hyun as he sat quietly, sipping his iced Americano. He wasn't checking his phone, he wasn't rushing, he was just existing. It was rare to see someone so famous looking so at peace. Ji-yeon nudged her. Should we ask for a picture? Hanul quickly shook her head. No way. He came here to relax. Let's just leave him alone. Ji-yeon pouted. You're no fun. Hanul ignored her and focused on her work, trying to push the overwhelming realization out of her mind. It's just another customer. Just another order. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. About 20 minutes passed, and Kim Soo-hyun finally stood up. Hanul's heart skipped a beat. She quickly walked back to the counter, preparing to thank him for coming. He approached without a word, placing his empty cup on the counter and reaching for his wallet. Hanul smiled politely. Did you enjoy your coffee? He paused for a moment before nodding. Yes. It was exactly what I needed. Something about the way he said it made her heart squeeze. Did I just make his day a little better? She knew it was silly, but somehow, that small moment of appreciation meant everything. Soo-hyun pulled out a bill and placed it inside the tip jar. Hanul barely glanced at it until she noticed something unusual. The bill was large. Much larger than what people usually tipped for a simple coffee. Her eyes widened. 50,000 won. She blinked. Wait, what? Most customers left coins or small bills as tips, maybe a couple of thousand won at most. But 50,000? That was almost 10 times the price of his drink. She quickly looked up, her mouth opening to protest. Mr. Kim, this is. But before she could finish, he was already walking toward the door. The bell chimed softly as he pushed it open. Hanul stood frozen, watching him disappear into the street. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were trembling. She could barely process what had just happened. Ji-yeon rushed to her side. What? Just happened? Hanul could only stare at the money in disbelief. I don't know, she whispered. And then, she noticed something else. Tucked beneath the bill was a small folded note. With trembling hands, she picked it up and unfolded it. Scroll for your kindness. Keep smiling, it suits you. Her breath hitched. Tears pricked her eyes. She had never expected anything like this. Not from a celebrity. Not from Kim Soo-hyun. She had only been doing her job. But somehow, he had seen her. And that changed everything. Hanul stared at the note, her hands trembling as she reread the words. Scroll for your kindness. Keep smiling, it suits you. A lump formed in her throat. She had served hundreds of customers before, exchanged countless polite smiles, and given her best service every single day. But never had someone left behind a message like this. And certainly not Kim Soo-hyun. Ji-yeon grabbed the bill and practically screamed. 50,000 won, she hissed. Hanul, this is crazy. Hanul still couldn't process it. I don't know why he did this. Ji-yeon gawked at her. Are you serious? Of course he did this. You were kind, you didn't make a big deal about who he was, and oh my god, this note? He noticed your smile? Hanul felt her face heat up. Ji-yeon, stop. But deep down, her heart was racing. It wasn't about the money, it was about the meaning behind it. Kim Soo-hyun had noticed her. Not just as a waitress, but as a person. And that realization alone made her eyes sting with tears. Later that evening, when her shift ended, Hanul sat alone in the quiet coffee shop, staring at the note again. Her fingers traced over the words. Keep smiling, it suits you. She hadn't even realized how tired she had been lately. How routine her life had become. She worked long hours, paid her bills, and went home without expecting anything more. But tonight? Tonight had shaken something inside her. Why do I feel like this is more than just a tip? As she walked home, the city lights flickering around her, she made a decision. She wasn't just going to remember this moment. She was going to do something with it. She had spent so much time thinking her job was just a job. But now, she wanted to believe in something more. That night, lying in bed, she grabbed her phone and hesitated. Then, with her heart pounding, she typed a message. Envelope with arrow. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but, thank you for noticing me. She hesitated for a moment before hitting send. She had no idea if he would ever read it. But somehow, just sending those words out into the universe felt like the start of something new. As she placed her phone down and closed her eyes, one thought stayed in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment my life started to change. Hanul woke up the next morning with a strange feeling in her chest. Had she really sent that message last night? She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, her heart pounding as she opened her messages. Envelope with arrow message sent. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but thank you for noticing me. No reply. She let out a small sigh, shaking her head at herself. Of course he wouldn't reply. He's Kim Soo-hyun. He probably gets thousands of messages every day. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her had shifted. It wasn't just about whether or not he responded. It was about the fact that, for the first time in a long time, she had acknowledged that she wanted something more. More than just working long hours, more than just going through the motions. She had spent years doing her best, smiling through exhaustion, treating every customer with kindness. But deep down, she had never expected anything in return. And yet, in one small moment, Kim Soo-hyun had reminded her that her effort mattered. She exhaled deeply and got ready for her shift, determined to carry that feeling with her. When she arrived at the cafe, Ji-yeon was already waiting for her. The moment Hanul stepped through the door, Ji-yeon practically tackled her. Hanul, she whisper-shouted, her eyes wild. Hanul blinked, startled. What? What happened? Ji-yeon shoved her phone in front of Hanul's face. Look. Hanul squinted at the screen and then her heart stopped. It was a photo. A photo of their cafe. Posted on Kim Soo-hyun's private account. Her breath hitched. No way. She read the caption, her hands shaking. Scroll a quiet place. A warm coffee. And a reminder that kindness always matters. Hanul staggered back, gripping the counter. Ji-yeon, he posted about the cafe? Ji-yeon nodded furiously. And now people are freaking out trying to figure out where this is. Hanul's mind spun. She had never expected him to come back. She had never expected him to acknowledge their small coffee shop at all. But now, the whole country might find out about it. And that changed everything. The cafe was busier than ever that day. Word had already spread. Customers came in, whispering excitedly, glancing around, trying to guess where Kim Soo-hyun had sat. Some even asked if he had left a message. Hanul felt overwhelmed, but also proud. She had no idea why he had chosen to share this place. But deep down, she couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, it was because of her. And for the first time, she believed she was worth being noticed. Hanul could barely keep up with the sudden influx of customers. The cafe, which usually had a steady but manageable flow of regulars, was now packed with new faces. People were whispering excitedly, stealing glances at the counter, as if expecting Kim Soo-hyun to walk in again. Her hands moved quickly as she brewed coffees and served pastries, but her mind was still reeling. Did this really happen? Did Kim Soo-hyun really post about our cafe? Ji-yeon, who was handling the cash register, leaned toward her in between customers. This is insane, she whispered. Do you realize what's happening right now? This place just became famous overnight. Hanul nodded absent-mindedly. I know, but I still don't get why. Ji-yeon scoffed. Are you serious? He obviously liked the atmosphere. Maybe he liked the coffee. Or, she grinned teasingly, maybe he liked the waitress who served it. Hanul's face burned. Ji-yeon. Her friend laughed. I'm just saying. He literally left you a huge tip, a personal note, and now he's posting about your cafe? That's not normal customer behavior, Hanul. Hanul's stomach flipped. No. That can't be it. Right? Before she could overthink it, her phone vibrated in her apron pocket. She nearly ignored it until she saw the notification. Envelope with arrow, new message from unknown number. Her breath hitched. She hesitated before pulling out her phone and opening the message. Envelope with arrow, looks like your cafe is a little busier today. Her hands shook. No way. She quickly typed back. Envelope with arrow. Did you do this on purpose? Envelope with arrow. I just shared a place I liked. The rest happened on its own. Hanul bit her lip, her heart pounding. Envelope with arrow. You didn't have to do that. Envelope with arrow. I wanted to. Her chest tightened. Why? Why was he doing this? Before she could type another message, Ji-yeon nudged her hard. Earth to Hanul. Table 3 is waiting for their drinks. She snapped back to reality. Right. I got it. Shoving her phone back into her pocket, she forced herself to focus. But deep down, she knew something was changing. And this wasn't just about a coffee shop anymore. That night, when the cafe finally closed, Hanul collapsed into a chair, exhausted. Ji-yeon flopped down beside her. We just lived through the craziest shift ever. Hanul chuckled, running a hand through her hair. Yeah. That was unexpected. Ji-yeon smirked. So? Did he text back? Hanul's cheeks warmed. How do you even know he texted me? Ji-yeon rolled her eyes. Please. I saw your face when you checked your phone earlier. You looked like you were about to pass out. Hanul sighed. He just wanted to check if we were okay. Ji-yeon stared at her. He checked on you? Hanul groaned. Ji-yeon, please. But her friend was grinning wildly. Oh, this is getting interesting. Hanul looked down at her phone, rereading his message. Envelope with arrow. I wanted to. She still didn't understand why he cared. But for some reason, she liked that he did. And for the first time, she started wondering. What happens next? Hanul couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind replayed everything that had happened. The sudden flood of customers. The excitement in the cafe. The message from Kim Soo-hyun. Envelope with arrow. I wanted to. She rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. Why does this feel like more than just a generous tip? She wasn't naive, she knew that celebrities didn't usually go out of their way for people like her. But something about this felt different. With a deep sigh, she grabbed her phone and opened her messages. She hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before finally typing. Envelope with arrow. I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you. She hesitated, then pressed send. She didn't expect an immediate reply. But a few minutes later. Envelope with arrow. Because kindness should be noticed. Her heart skipped a beat. She sat up in bed, staring at the screen. Envelope with arrow. You remind me of someone I used to know. Her fingers trembled as she typed. Envelope with arrow. Who? There was a long pause. Then. Envelope with arrow. Someone who always put others first. Even when they didn't realize how much they deserved to be seen, too. Hanul's breath caught in her throat. Her chest tightened. Is that how he sees me? Before she could respond, another message popped up. Envelope with arrow. Get some rest. You're going to have another busy day tomorrow. She let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. Envelope with arrow. Good night, Mr. Kim. Envelope with arrow. Good night, Hanul. Her stomach flipped. She put her phone down, but this time, she didn't feel restless. She felt at peace. And for the first time, she wondered. What if this is just the beginning? The next morning, when Hanul arrived at the cafe, there was already a line outside. She stopped in her tracks. What is happening? Ji-yeon rushed up to her, waving her phone. He did it again. Hanul blinked. Did what again? Ji-yeon practically shoved the screen into her face. There it was, another post. Scroll a good place. Good people. And the best coffee in Seoul. Her hands shook. Kim Soo-hyun had just told the world that their tiny cafe had the best coffee in Seoul. Her heart raced. She didn't know what this meant. She didn't know why he was doing this. But one thing was certain. Her life would never be the same again. Hanul felt her legs go weak. She clutched Ji-yeon's arm, her heart pounding as she stared at the post. A good place. Good people. And the best coffee in Seoul. Her cafe. Their cafe. Kim Soo-hyun had just told the entire world that their little shop, her workplace, her second home, was worth visiting. Ji-yeon squeezed her shoulders, practically shaking her. "Do you understand what this means?" she yelled. "People are going to come from everywhere. This cafe is about to become famous." Hanul could barely process it. The line outside the cafe kept growing, people eagerly whispering as they waited for the doors to open. Some held their phones, clearly showing the post. Some even peeked inside, hoping to see if Kim Soo-hyun was here again. She swallowed hard. "Ji-yeon, what if this is too much?" Ji-yeon scoffed. "Too much? Hanul, this is the best thing that could ever happen." But Hanul wasn't sure. The cafe had always been small, simple, cozy. Would this change everything? Would they lose that warmth? Would she lose herself in all of this? Before she could spiral further, her phone buzzed. "Envelope with arrow, you okay?" She blinked. She knew exactly who it was. She hesitated before typing back. "Envelope with arrow, it's overwhelming. I don't know if I'm ready for this." A few moments later, the reply came. "Envelope with arrow, you don't have to be ready. Just take it one step at a time." She let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. One step at a time. She could do that. She had to do that. With renewed determination, she turned to Ji-yeon. "Okay. Let's do this." Ji-yeon grinned. "Now that's what I like to hear." And with that, Hanul unlocked the doors, welcoming in a new chapter of her life. The cafe was busier than ever. Customers flooded in, ordering drinks, asking about the shop's history, even requesting to sit in the exact booth where Kim Soo-hyun had been. Hanul worked harder than she ever had before, moving quickly, preparing orders, smiling at customers. But through all the chaos, she felt something new. Excitement. For the first time, she wasn't just serving coffee. She was part of something bigger. And that realization made her chest swell with pride. That night, after the cafe finally closed, she sank into a chair, completely exhausted. Ji-yeon sat beside her, still buzzing with energy. "We just survived the craziest day of our lives," she said, laughing. Hanul chuckled tiredly. "Yeah, we did." Her phone buzzed again. "Envelope with arrow, how was the first day of being famous?" Hanul smiled. "Envelope with arrow, exhausting. But, kind of exciting too. Envelope with arrow told you. You can handle this." She hesitated before typing again. "Envelope with arrow, why are you helping me so much?" The reply came almost instantly. "Envelope with arrow, because someone once helped me when I didn't believe in myself. Now it's my turn." Her chest tightened. She didn't know what this connection was, why it was happening, or where it would lead. But one thing was clear. Kim Soo-hyun believed in her. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe in herself, too. Hanul stared at the message on her screen, her heart full. "Envelope with arrow, because someone once helped me when I didn't believe in myself. Now it's my turn." She let the words sink in. Kim Soo-hyun, one of the most famous actors in Korea, had noticed her. Had believed in her, encouraged her, and somehow, in the middle of his busy life, had chosen to help her. And the most unbelievable part? It didn't feel random. It felt intentional. She took a deep breath and replied. "Envelope with arrow, I won't waste this chance. I promise. Envelope with arrow, good. I'll be watching." A small smile tugged at her lips. It wasn't just about the cafe anymore. This was about something bigger. For years, she had been just a waitress, serving customers, working late shifts, going home tired, and doing it all over again the next day. But now, she was part of something special. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen. And that changed everything. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The cafe continued to thrive. Customers kept coming, drawn in by the story, by the warmth of the place, by the magic that had started with a simple cup of coffee. Hanul found herself working harder than ever, but she loved every second of it. She met people from all over, listened to their stories, shared laughs with regulars, and even started experimenting with new drinks, adding her own personal touch to the menu. And every night, she would get a simple text. "Envelope with arrow, how was today?" And every night, she would reply. "Envelope with arrow, busy, but amazing." And somehow, she knew he would always read it. One evening, after closing up the cafe, Hanul sat at the counter, looking at the space around her. The cafe was the same, yet completely different. It had grown. She had grown. And for the first time, she wondered what comes next. Her phone buzzed. "Envelope with arrow, I think it's time you start thinking about your own place." Her eyes widened. "Envelope with arrow, my own cafe? Envelope with arrow, why not?" Her hands trembled slightly. She had never let herself dream that big. But now? Now she was starting to believe it was possible. She smiled softly, staring at the message, her heart full of gratitude. "Envelope with arrow, one step at a time, right? Envelope with arrow, exactly. And when you open it, I'll be your first customer." Hanul laughed. "Envelope with arrow deal." As she put down her phone and locked up the cafe for the night, she felt something deep inside her. A feeling she hadn't had in years. Hope. Speech balloon. If you've made it this far, type "one step at a time" in the comments.